The Mercedes ZEROPOD became the butt of jokes in the F1 world. But while everyone was laughing about it, Adrian saw it as a challenge. The RB20 has been revealed, and despite Red Bull trying to keep it a secret, they couldn't hide the big trick of the 2024 car. The media was more interested in what Christian Horner had to say about the investigation, but the real scandal is that Red Bull took Mercedes' failed design from last year and used it on their own car. I'm going to break down the RB20, talk about the crazy innovations they've shown, and why this is bad news for the rest of the teams. On Thursday evening, Red Bull finally showed off their RB20, making them the last team to unveil their car for 2024. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez were there as the new car was revealed at the Milton Keynes base. Now the car still rocks the traditional navy blue color, but they're going for a more aggressive concept. They're crossing their fingers for no major performance changes since their previous car, the RB19, dominated in 2023, winning almost every Grand Prix. The RB19 was a beast, winning 19 out of 22 races and securing Verstappen's third driver's title. No wonder everyone else wants to copy its concept. So, the RB20 might have everyone on the edge of their seats, wondering if Red Bull can keep up the winning streak with their inspiration from Mercedes. Every car revealed so far has this similar bulbous side pod thing with a massive lower lip. They've all shuffled their suspension around, trying to get that anti-dive effect that Red Bull brought back in 2022. It's like a trend in F1, you show off a cool idea and everyone else wants to copy and compete. But, there's a catch. When you're copying another team, they're always a few steps ahead, cooking up new designs. It's a risk. So, while everyone else was launching their versions of Red Bull's RB19, Red Bull surprised everyone by launching their version of Mercedes W14, the one that didn't do so hot last year. We'll get into what makes this design exciting in a bit. At the launch, Verstappen said he's happy with the new direction. He saw the drawings in Abu Dhabi and he was like, wow, that's different. He appreciates that Red Bull isn't playing it safe. They had a great package in 2023, but they took a chance to be innovative and go all out. Verstappen likes the team's ambitious approach. But there's always a gamble with such aggressive innovation. Red Bull had a winning formula in 2023, and now they're taking a big leap away from that. It's a brave move, but Verstappen doesn't see it as a risk. He thinks it's controlled aggressiveness. Everyone in the team seems happy and confident in the new concept, but of course, only time will tell if it's a winning move. So what has Red Bull really done with their RB20? The standout feature is the reshaped engine cover, which looks a lot like what Mercedes did last year. Verstappen calls it Red Bull style. Another eye-catching change is the adoption of narrow side pod inlets, a feature that Mercedes also used recently. At the car launch, some parts were cleverly hidden, like the floor edges, keeping things mysterious. Mercedes had a similar design in 2022 and the early races of last season, but they moved away from it after facing performance issues. Toto Wolff, Mercedes' big boss, openly criticized the design at the start of 2023 when they were lagging behind Red Bull. Fast forward to Monaco, and Mercedes showcased a different side pod design on their RB19 car, making everyone think the bulbous side pod concept was done for. There were even memes circulating with Red Bull's designer Adrian Newey, looking at a Mercedes car with captions like, "Idiots, I could make this work." No one really thought Red Bull would try it, but when there's room for innovation in F1 regulations, someone is bound to give it a shot. Both Mercedes and Red Bull faced challenges with this design, but Red Bull seems to have found a solution, with rival teams now offering their own takes on the big lower lip inlet and undercut solution that Red Bull has been refining over the past 2 seasons. They've gone and ditched the lower lip that everyone else is doing. Instead, they've got this big upper lip that sticks out. It's like an extension of the top surface of the side pod. What's interesting is that it creates a massive ramp that starts in front of the cockpit and finishes just in front of the rear wheels. This is different from the other cars on the grid, where the side pod ramps usually start at the rear of the cockpit. Underneath that hefty upper lip, there's a tiny little inlet. At the car launch, it was pretty much invisible thanks to some clever lighting that left a big black space below the upper lip, revealing no details. However, images from the RB20 being tested at Silverstone show a vertical inlet hugging tightly against the side of the cockpit. It's quite similar to the side pod inlet on Mercedes W14 launch car, but there are significant differences. This isn't just a copy of Mercedes W14 with Red Bull's touch. It's an innovation taking the RB19 undercut side pod concept to the extreme. Speaking of which, the Mercedes ZEROPOD cars had almost no side pod at all. Instead, they had this slope from the top of the car to the floor edge with hardly any undercut. Now, the RB20 from Red Bull still maintains a bulbous side pod with a significant undercut. When you look at them from the front, these side pods are pretty massive. However, the inlet into them is clearly inspired by the ZEROPOD concept. Now, why would Red Bull go for this new design? There must be some advantages, right? They wouldn't just do it for the heck of it. So, let's try to figure out what those advantages might be. First off, remember the main purpose of side pods in an F1 car. It's all about cooling. The hole in the front lets air in, which then cools down the engine components, taking away the heat from the engine and releasing it out the back of the car. Cooling is the main deal here. But in F1, everything has to be multifunctional. Side pods aren't just about cooling, they also play a role in aerodynamics. Teams design them to not only cool the engine, but also to aid in the overall aerodynamics of the car. It's like a dual-purpose feature, keeping things cool and helping the car slice through the air more efficiently. However, the layout of the cooling systems within the Red Bull car remains a bit mysterious. But it seems that the new side pod design is aimed at making the cooling process more efficient. Here's the deal. The fewer cooling parts you need, the lighter the car becomes, and the faster it can go. If each cooling part can do its job better, you can use fewer of them. Having fewer cooling parts also allows you to minimize the external bodywork cross-section, especially in areas crucial for generating downforce, helping reduce drag. With this new side pod design, Red Bull has achieved a vertically compact side pod that sits low on the car. The top surface of the side pod starts much farther forward than other cars and features the gully or water slide design introduced by Alpine. This design, with a large surface and a trough, is a dream for aerodynamicists. It channels a significant amount of air toward the rear axle, where the diffuser and wing work together to create loads of downforce. What's impressive is that Red Bull has achieved this while reducing the cross-section of external bodywork, ultimately reducing drag. In simple terms, to make an F1 car fast, you need to decrease drag and increase downforce, and this design accomplishes both. The vertically compact yet wide side pod creates a substantial undercut between the floor and the side pod. This is a significant difference from Mercedes W14, as they never had this extensive undercut, which could be where they face challenges. The undercut channels air over the floor edges, crucial for the performance of the underfloor tunnels beneath the car. Coming to the floor edge, it's shaped to create vortexes of air, which boost downforce by forcing air out of the diffuser. The air also channels to the rear axle, combining with the airflow over the top of the side pod to enhance the diffuser and beam wings performance. Now, here's the interesting part. The big shoulder, or cannon, starting where the halo ends and running to the rear of the car, houses more cooling equipment. Air passing through the hole in the rollover structure flows through these cannons and exits at the back, enhancing rear aerodynamics. Unlike Mercedes, Red Bull's cannons drop aggressively at the rear, releasing air lower for better performance. To sum it all, Red Bull's new side pod is all about channeling air onto critical aerodynamic components while reducing drag. They've blended inspiration from the W14 with their own undercut side pod design. As Max said, it's aggressive and brave, typical of Red Bull and Adrian Newey's approach. While a repeat of 2023's dominance isn't guaranteed, the rest of the grid should definitely be wary. What are your thoughts on Red Bull's new car? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and hit that subscribe button to keep the content flowing. See you in the next one.